Did the grand jury recommend indictments of multiple people?
Yes. I will tell you, it's not a short list. I mean, we saw 75 people, and there are 6 pages of the report cut out.
So we're talking about more than a dozen people?
I would say that, yes.
Are these recognizable names that people would know?
There are certainly names that you would recognize, yes. There definitely are some names that you expect.
Well, we got to see this groundbreaking interview with this extraordinary legal mind.
Did you personally want to hear from the former president?
I wanted to hear from the former president, but honestly, I kind of wanted to subpoena the former president because I got to swear everybody in. And so I thought it'd be really cool to get 60 seconds with President Trump of me looking at him and being like, do you solemnly swear? And me getting to swear him in. I kind of just thought that would be an awesome moment. And I'm hesitant to speak to something that the judge made a decision not to share. I don't know if everyone's aware of this, but there was a hearing about what parts of the report should and should not be published in its various forms, and the sections that were removed were consciously chosen to be removed, and I don't want to say I have better judgment than the judge.
The name that everyone wants to know about is former President Trump.
Of course.
Did you recommend charges against Donald Trump?
I really don't want to share something that the judge made a conscious decision not to share. I will tell you that it was a process where we heard his name a lot. We definitely heard a lot about former President Trump, and we definitely discussed him a lot in the room. And I will say that when this list comes out, there are no major plot twists waiting for you.
You know, it's interesting. That just raises more questions of
I know, I'm sorry.
No, please do not apologize. I'm very appreciative of your time. When you say there's no plot twists and, people won't be shocked, people are going to hear that and they're going to think that means that Donald Trump is definitely on that list. I know it's delicate, but can you speak to that?
I can't. Well, I might be able to according to instructions, but I don't want to. I don't want to speak out on something that the judge, like I said, consciously chose not to release at this point. I don't know if I would interfere with the DA's investigations. I don't know if I would interfere with procedures in some way. I very much do not want to cross that line.
Did the grand jury recommend an indictment of former President Trump?
I'm not going to speak on exact indictments.
Would we be surprised? Are there bombshells of who is being recommended for indictment?
I don't think that there are any giant plot twists coming. I don't think that there are any giant, that's not the way I expected this to go at all. I don't think that's in store for anyone.
So nothing that would surprise people who have been following this?
Probably not. I wouldn't want to characterize anyone else's reaction, of course, but so that was when we heard a lot in testimony. But probably not. It probably wouldn't shock you. I would not expect you to be too shocked, no.
And that includes of the former president, potentially?
Potentially.
How many people came into the room to testify with immunity deals already in place?
Maybe a dozen. My coolest moment was shaking Rudy Giuliani's hand. That was really cool for me. I made a point of stopping them and being like, wait, before we go back to this, can I shake your hand? Because it's an honor to meet the guy. It was really neat for me.
Someone who, during proceedings, drew sketches of witnesses like Senator Lindsey Graham and former Trump aide Mark Short, and who swore in at least one witness, I am not kidding here, holding a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles popsicle stick.
Donald Trump put out a statement last week about the partial report that the judge did release, the pages that he did. And the way that he described it is he said that yet your report means total exoneration for him, is how he put it in his statement. What's your reaction to that, Emily?
I I did see that today, which was fascinating. I'm not positive he read the right document, but I will say that if what he was talking about was our statement where we indicated that there was no evidence of widespread fraud or widespread vote fraud in the Georgia 2020 election, that might have been what he meant. Other than that, I'm not positive what he meant by that. I'd be interested to know.
I'm sure we will hear more from him after after it all comes out. You know, the portion of the final report that has been released, there's another portion. That part that you just talked about was of great interest to a lot of us, but also the other portion that obviously demands a lot of attention is also the portion, and I'll read this for everyone, where you all wrote, a majority of the grand jury believes that perjury may have been committed by one or more witnesses testifying before it. Is perjury the crime that you all believed was the main crime you all believe was committed?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that it ended up included there because it was less pointed of a suggestion than some of the other things we may have written in the parts of the report the judge chose to keep confidential.
Like
I would say that
less specific to a person?
Right, right. I would say that we thought it was important to keep it separate as well. Okay, I will say that I thought it was important to keep it separate as well, at least in my opinion, not anybody else's but mine, that there's a difference between the crimes we were called to investigate and crimes that were committed in the room.
How would you describe the strength of the evidence that was put before you?
The strength of it.
Was it clear-cut?
We heard a lot of very compelling things. Like a lot of very compelling evidence. A lot of very interesting things and things that we didn't expect. We discovered a lot as we went.
Like, we know that you all heard at least one call that Donald Trump was on during this period. This is the infamous call that the whole world has heard as it was released when he was speaking to Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger. But in terms of just calls and recordings of calls, are there others of those?
I can tell you I heard other phone calls. I don't think I could name all of them right now if I wanted to. After 75 witnesses in 8 months, it gets hard to keep all your bits straight.
Other calls that Donald Trump was on?
Yes. I'm positive I have heard the president on the phone more than once.
You know, this wasn't just a few days of jury duty. I've been kind of thinking about this as we were going to speak today. I mean, this was more than 7 months of your life, and dealing with one of the most closely scrutinized investigations in recent political history. What is your lasting impression of this process, Emily?
I've loved being a part of this process. I think it's amazing to actually be able to be a part of this process for once. I think it's a privilege to be able to actually be a part of the system for once and making it work. This has been fascinating to get this peek into the world of like politics and of all these different, of government and of all these different things, and, you know, have the curtain lifted just a little bit and let us peek in as regular people has been amazing, and I'm so glad that I did it.
And so after that, when it's all said and done and the DA makes her final decision on charging, what do you say to people who question your findings or want to say that your investigation, what you all were doing in that room, was influenced by politics?
I think that's the opposite. I think that by choosing to have a grand jury, by choosing to impanel regular people, they very specifically chose to avoid politics, to take bias out of the question, because they chose to get, instead of anyone else, they chose to get 16 random people. They could have gotten, you know, if they had wanted someone who was just going to support their opinions, they could have gone and hired a bunch of legal experts. There were all kinds of choices that could have been made there, but they chose to get a random sampling of the population of the area, and I think that speaks really strongly to them trying to avoid bias in any way and trying to avoid politics.
After everything that you've seen, what would your reaction be if the DA decides against bringing any charges after what you've seen?
I will be sad if nothing happens. Like that's about my only request there is for something to happen. I don't necessarily know what it is. I'm not the legal expert. I'm not the judge. I'm not the lawyers. But I will be frustrated if nothing happens. This was too much information, too much of my time, too much of everyone's time, too much of their time, too much argument in court about getting people to appear before us. There was just too much for this to just be, oh, okay, we're good, bye.
And if it was just a perjury charge or perjury charges, would that be acceptable to you?
That's fine. I will be happy as long as something happens.
You know, Emily, the political environment has become more dangerous.
Yes.
There are so many examples of that, and look no further than the violence we saw on the Capitol attack on January 6th. Now, with your name and your face out there and connected to such a high-profile investigation involving Donald Trump, are you worried about your safety?
I'm not. I'm cautious about my safety. I'm aware of my safety, but I'm not worried. I don't think I should be. I don't think I did, or any of the jury members did anything that says we believe one way or the other about politics, about any of these issues. I think we were impaneled to find facts, and I think we did our best to find those facts and share those facts with the district attorney in her office. And I feel like that's where it ends.